My name is Raymond Taylor. I'm a diagnosed psychopath. I was sentenced to prison for one punch that left a man in a coma. This is everything I'm authorized to tell you. I understand emotions, but I don't feel them. So when people say, how do you feel about that? I say, well, actually, I don't. I think about that. I could go a month and not feel anything, and there's every now and again, I'll just get a little flicker and I'll go, oh, I had a little something there. I'm a life coach today. I would not be the success I am without being a psychopath. So I can always remember being a bad, quote, kid, and naughty, mischievous, cheeky. I also remember having a very toxic relationship with my dad specifically. In 2014, I'd got back from an extremely chaotic summer abroad where I was drinking, fighting every day. I was getting involved with all sorts of situations. I would start fights, I would start trouble. I wanted to feel something, and you get adrenaline from doing something bad. When I was fighting to hurt, to win, to feel powerful. I wouldn't stop. People would have to drag me off. I would be punching and punching, and stamping and stamping and stamping. And I am, and other people are very lucky that I didn't end up killing somebody. I got a bit of a thrill from knowing that people saw me in that way, and I would do it for the attention. I was just doing anything I could to push things right to the edge, to the point where I could die, and I didn't care. It seems like a silly thing, but I would literally swing from balconies, and I would be underneath and I'd be swinging from one arm and just hanging off. And I would see everyone going, oh my God, look up there at Lewis. And I would that for me was more important. For getting the look at Lewis, he's so crazy, was more important than I could drop and die. And I wouldn't even think I could drop and die. It wouldn't even go through my mind, because that fear response is just like numb. And I realized that I was becoming an alcoholic because I no longer was doing it out of choice, and I realized I now needed to, and I was also still being aggressive. I'd already committed loads of crimes since the age of about 13, all sorts of different ones. The last time I went to prison was a time that I hit a guy in a taxi queue, and he had a brain hemorrhage and was in a coma, and then did make a full recovery, but I was sent to prison for 18 months for grievous bodily harm. I was out one night, and actually I jumped to the front of a taxi queue. I don't know if I did it on purpose or I didn't realize there was a queue or what have you, but some guy shouted at me, said something. When I think about this guy that I hit, all I can see actually on this occasion is my dad's face. I was definitely angry because of my dad. He would hit me, he would be abusive at me, he'd call me a buffoon. But this particular time, because he was older, I was 24 by the time this happened, and he was 40. I saw that as an old man. And he shouted at me, and I just remember just seeing my dad and just punching him in the face. And he hit his head like flat on the ground, his face flat on the ground actually, to the point where he was just stone cold knocked out. And then blood started coming out of his head. So I thought, that's it. I just looked straight to my left, and I saw the CCTV camera. I was outside a train station at the time, and I just thought, that's it. And I'd like to tell you that my first thought was a man, but it wasn't. It was me. It was, I'm going to go to prison. So I put my coat over him, literally thinking he was dead, and then put my hands up and waited for the police to arrive. And within a short period of time, they had to put me in the back of the car, took me to the police station. Luckily, he hadn't died, and I was sent to prison. Because I pleaded guilty at the scene, I got a lot of time reduced. In the UK, you serve 9 months in prison, and then you serve 9 months on probation. So I actually only served 9 months inside prison on that occasion. In probation, later on, I did reach out to him as an opportunity for restorative justice. At the time, I honestly couldn't tell you whether I was doing that just to, tick a box or whatever. But then later on down the line, I did want to see if I could contact him just to see what could happen, and but he wasn't interested in responding. When it happened at the time, I don't have those responses where I think about fear or what people think or what's going to happen. There is, of course, a inconvenience and a frustration of the consequences of the inevitable prison time that I obviously didn't want. But it's not associated with fear. It's not like, what's going to happen when I go to prison? It's just, I'm going to be in prison for a long time.
And now looking back, what do you think about this reaction? What does it make you feel now with everything that you know about this?
So looking back on it, and this is the most difficult thing for me to share, because this is the thing that paints me in the worst light in terms of the stereotypical way of people will perceive it, but they have to truly understand it. But when I look back on it now, I feel the same, because I don't feel anything. I understand it shouldn't have happened, and what a stupid kid I was, and what an unfortunate situation that man found himself in, and it shouldn't have happened to him. But it's just not associated to a visceral feeling. It's associated to a cognitive understanding of knowing that, that shouldn't have happened and that's bad and wrong. But whatever remorse or guilt feels like, I just have no idea what it could feel like. If I could explain psychopathy in one sentence, I would personally just describe it as somebody who experiences the world and emotions differently to other people. So psychopathy is not in the DSM manual. You can't be any more diagnosed with actually just being a psychopath. You have to have the underlying clinical condition, which is an antisocial personality disorder, which is what I have. The main traits of psychopathy are impulsiveness, manipulation. There's a very low risk fear tolerance as well. It's emotional bluntness or a complete lack of emotion. And that obviously translates to many things: lack of remorse, lack of guilt, a lack of concern or care for other people, if not trained and understood. I feel almost nothing. And sometimes I'll use language to just make sense to people, and I might say the word feel, but I don't actually feel it. I understand it. I can get to emotion. But I can also just take it off. I could never think of something ever again if I wanted to. If I go, that's too difficult, I can just don't think about it. Certain things like funerals, weddings, hierarchy of authority, they just don't really make sense or mean anything to me. It's only now that I have such an awareness around the diagnosis that I really start to compare and contrast myself against other people and just realize the disparity of what I feel versus what they feel. And then I realized over time, especially from dealing with people one-to-one, that it was actually everyone that was like that, or most people anyway. And it was me that was different, it was me that was probably acting in a way that I shouldn't have. Now I can actually ask the question. I can say to people, when this happens, what do you feel? What sensations are going on in your body? Do you actually have like a sinking feeling, a warm fuzzy? Does it actually feel warm and fuzzy? And I can actually understand that. I am not emotionless. I just experience it differently. That's the thing. I know it's alien to people, but I think it. I don't feel it, but it doesn't mean to say it's not there. For example, I have partners, I have love in my life, but it's just not a felt sense love. Like I have to be shown it, I have to understand it, I have to believe it, and it becomes as a part of a bond over time rather than like an immediate emotional connection. But I know that I love people. I get to the point where someone will say, do you love them? And I can say yes or no. And I don't know why, but it's just a part of my brain that's decided they've now met that criteria because of things that have happened. And I know from my actions of what I would do for that person. So if I would, it's going to sound extreme, but if I would kill for that person, then I know that must mean I love them. So it's different, but I make my own map of the world based on what I have available to me. And I relate it as close to language and a normal human experience of a sort of normal neurotypical person.
How about the birth of your son?
Do you know what? So when my dad died, I cried. When a girlfriend cheated on me when I was younger, I cried. And I felt it as well. So I have had times where I've been hurt. I was really worried I wasn't going to cry when my son was born because I just would have felt cold. And when I say feel, it's just the only way to explain it. But I would have just reinforced to myself that I'm this bad, unlovable man that's going to not be able to break this pattern with my son that happened with my dad. I know not everybody does anyway, but I just wanted to because I wanted it to be the moment where hopefully he could, bring something out in me that I'm waiting to see in myself. And he came out and I cried. So I was very relieved. And that was the first time I've ever cried out of happiness, ever. I've never experienced that. I didn't know how people could have emotion through happiness. It doesn't reach that intensity for me, right? Very flat.
Do you love him?
Yes, I love him.
So that's a feeling.
It's a feeling, but it's like I said, so if you want me to talk about that one quickly. So I definitely love my son. This is difficult to admit because I wouldn't want him to see it and misunderstand it, but it's different. It's still different. I can't deny it. It's stronger than anything else. I'm able to be away from him and not think about him every day. I'm able to detach my emotions. It took me a while to build that bond, that connection. It still feels surreal at times. I'm probably not as loving as a normal dad would be, and that's a shame to say because I don't wish that upon myself or anybody, because it's a shame to be able to have to say that. But it's the truth, I want to try and be as truthful as possible. So I love him in the ways that I've explained, and he's on the highest end of the spectrum that hits above that threshold. But it's probably still less. And hopefully by the time he reaches sort of an older age, I've worked on myself even more so that I can show him that I love him in every aspect, that he's going to feel it and need it and understand it. Relationships look very different to me, because I understand like the love languages. Love languages are different things, like you experience love through physical touch or through gifts or through acts of service and present quality time and different things. And for me, it has to actually be the acts of service, which sounds like a really chauvinistic thing, but it's not, because I really like to contribute and be a good partnership with somebody. I like to be the provider, and I like to know that I am, but they have to show me something back, otherwise I just can't see it. So I would never force that upon somebody. But if a woman cooks me a meal, I would feel as close to as you would perceive loved, because I would say they're doing that because they love me. It's not you do it because you should. It's I appreciate that, and I can now see. Because if you try and radiate love to me, I'm not going to feel it. That has to be important in a relationship. It has to be quite a traditional dynamic like that. I might not have whatever everyone else has. I know that I have an element of care for people, and I still want to do the right thing. If anything, I think it could be more potent coming from me, because I have to make a logical choice to care. Now I have what is known as cognitive emotions. And specifically, like if we talk about empathy, which is a big part of psychopathy, I just don't emotionally relate to people. Somebody could tell me, they could tell me anything, absolutely anything, and I wouldn't feel nothing. And that's not to say I don't care. Like sometimes I am invested in thinking, you've been through a tough time, you need some help. I'm someone that can help you, I'm gonna help you. And I genuinely want to. Like I'm invested in doing that because I can see clearly and understand even more rationally, maybe some people with emotions sometimes, because sometimes they're clouded and they're overwhelmed by emotion to the point where they actually have to distance themselves from that situation. Me, sometimes I can logically just pull through that cloud and just help those people. So it's not that I don't care or want to help, it's that I just don't feel it. When I was 17, I had my first major girlfriend, and that's something I felt, because at this point I felt very bad and unlovable, because I either didn't feel it or wasn't getting it or wasn't receiving it in the way that I could understand. I just felt unloved. It felt like a void. And when I had this girlfriend, she would invite me around to her family's house. We'd watch TV. I would talk with her family. She had lots of brothers and sisters. And it was like, okay, this is what family's like. And I felt something. I felt like, oh, okay, maybe I'm actually okay because they've accepted me in, and this is normal. But then my alcohol was progressing, and she had an argument with me one night, and she just threw at me, well, I cheated on you. And it just really hit me. To this day, I've had quite a lot of trauma, but I think that one probably is the one that I remember feeling the most, because I felt loss, I felt confirmation that I was bad and unlovable. And I completely went berserk. And the ambulance arrived, and I was trying to fight them off, and they had to pin me down and stitch me up. And then I escaped from the hospital and was sectioned under the Mental Health Act, and it was just complete. I was screaming, telling them to let me die. That's how distraught I was over that. And I think although I've had some form of emotion, and in these extreme moments it kind of erupts. I think with that scenario, it felt like loss, I think, if I could connect it to what I guessed that would be, because in that moment, I knew we would never be together again. I knew it confirmed to me all the things that I hoped weren't true about me, that I was this bad and unlovable kid, this wouldn't have happened. And it was confirmation that I'd lost her, and it kind of just hit me all in that moment. I was very naughty from a young age. I don't know exactly where that came from, if it was like inherently naughtiness, part of this condition, or just who I was. But one of my earliest memories is kind of my mum coming into nursery and having to take me home straight away after, because it was come and see your child at nursery day, and everyone else was sitting quietly on the carpet, and I was running around the room banging a drum singing happy birthday, because I was just in a world of my own. I was nearly expelled from primary school, which is very unusual, because no one really gets expelled from primary school, but I nearly did, and I was expelled from secondary school. I think my environment played a big factor in the way that I am. I couldn't tell you if we wound back the clock and, you know, I had a different upbringing, I might feel all the emotions. I really couldn't tell you. I really bounced between thinking to myself, no, Lewis, you are so different to people that this is just you. You got to accept it and you got to just allow that to be part of who you are. To, no, actually, I think I could be like everyone else. And there's this little tiny flicker of a flame that keeps on getting snubbed out that maybe I could ignite, but then I go, no, I can't. At some point, something must have clicked for me, and I don't remember what happened, where I decided I wanted to be famous. And this was about 7 or 8 years old. And I thought, okay, I'll do the normal things you do when you want to be famous: singing, acting, and dancing. And I happened to be actually quite okay. You know, I don't know if I was a star, but I could sing, I could dance, I could act at an amateur level. So I did do plays and stage school and even ballet and tap dancing, which is crazy. So thinking back at it now, it's like this psychopathic guy who's a violent criminal who was once a ballerina. So that's the sort of contradiction of life. At one of the stage schools I was at, one of the people at the stage school I was in invited me back to his house. And he wasn't like an older man. He was just a lot older than me. Like on reflection, he was probably 18 and I was probably 10 or 11, but I actually don't know. And invited me back to his house. I thought nothing of it. And I somehow managed to, my parents let me sleep over his house. And I'm just trying to think about how that even happened. But I slept over at his house and it started normally like watching TV, and then he like held my hand. And it was just the weirdest thing. And I just froze. I was thinking, why is this guy holding my hand? But then a minute passed, I realized I hadn't pulled my hand away. And I was thinking, oh God. And then it was like classic bloody stereotypical climbing on the top bunk. You know, I came up on the top bunk where I was at. And sexually abused me. And at the time, I didn't really know what happened because I was so young. I'd never even had any experiences like that. So I didn't know, like, did he know this was going to happen? Should I have said like no? Did I participate? Did I actually do this with him? No idea. And that was something that I completely suppressed to the point where I don't think I even remembered it until I was in rehab at 24. And one of the things they do in treatment is to get you to share your life story. And I actually thought, I don't know what that is. So I had to literally get a bit of paper out and think, okay, well, this happened. And then when I went into rehab, you go in a group and you share your story in front of a group. And I didn't think my story was going to be that significant at the time, because I'm in here with like heroin addicts and homeless people, and I'm thinking their stories are going to be crazy and mine's going to be nothing. And I was sharing all these things, and I just see their jaw drop to the ground, and I just thought, oh my God, this is serious stuff. And that was the first time I'd ever shared that. So that was significant. I didn't feel anything at the time apart from confusion. I don't feel anything about it now. I don't actually think it made any difference to me, but it must have done. Like psychologically, clinically, logically, you look at it and you think, of course, that must have affected somebody. But I couldn't tell you, oh, from that day I felt so whatever, because I haven't. So anyway, that must have had an effect. I did have an emotionally shut down family, which of course is going to contribute to the learned behavior. My dad was very like almost psychopathic. My mum was very emotionally detached, but I think she showed emotion. I always thought my family was normal. I knew we didn't have the best relationship, but I didn't know, I couldn't compare it to, oh, this should be like this or that should be like that. They would provide some parental care in the way that they understood it, but from an emotional support place, it was just non-existent because they didn't know how to express that in their own way. So my mum, she wouldn't really, she finds it very uncomfortable to say I love you or cuddle. Even to this day, we try and make an effort now, but it's still very rare and awkward when it happens. So I know that it's there with her. It's just she wasn't able to share it, I think. I remember from the age of probably 7 years old being so angry and frustrated with myself because I thought it was my fault that this relationship had broken down between me and my dad. Every time I even went to speak to him, it would turn into a blazing row. He could become violent, but it wasn't often. I can't say that he beat me all the time, you know. It did do it, but it was more the emotional abuse or the things he said. My brother also actually very emotionally detached. We got on to a certain extent because we were similar in age. He was 5 years younger than me. And I kind of brought him into my lifestyle, really. Same sort of group of friends. I was selling drugs. I got him to sell drugs for me. That's kind of not what you would do with your family. But for me, it just didn't make it, to me, it made more sense, actually. To me, it's like, if I'm going to have someone that I trust, like I would prefer to have my brother doing this. Most people's thoughts would be, what if that happened? What if this happened? What if that? Oh, that's bad. What's it gonna? But it just didn't enter my brain. It started off juvenile, sort of silly behavior, and then eventually turned into things like shoplifting and smashing windows, and then drink and drugs. Started quite small, sort of weed at 13, alcohol sort of 15, cocaine by the time I was 18. And at that point, I was addicted to cocaine. So when I was diagnosed with having an antisocial personality disorder, it was a part of the system. So I had just committed some very violent crimes, and I was very young. And I've got a lot of trauma from my life. And I think with the traits of being so impulsive and reckless, and I had absolutely no regard for myself or my future, consequences just was completely out of my head. So I hurt a lot of people, not random people, of course. These were people that I'd, got into contact with out on a night of drinking or what have you. So I went to probation, and they do what's called a pre-sentence report. And it's where they kind of analyze you and your background and your behavior and your environment to be able to give a bit of a background package of information to the judge. I went in there, crossed my arms, said, do what you want, don't care. She said, you're looking at 8 years in prison. I was like, so what? Don't care. Do you not care about the people you found? No. Do you not care about what you've done? No. And I just never thought about it. I didn't think, oh, I'm not displaying remorse. I'm not. I just factually answering the questions, and I actually did not care whatsoever. And she was obviously quite perplexed by those responses and sent me for a psychiatric assessment. I didn't realize that was not normal. I thought that was just another part of this court process. Turns out it wasn't. As it turns out, she noticed something in me that was unusual. And then I met with a psychiatrist. They did an interview, asked me loads of questions. Nothing really stood out to me. I didn't think, oh, this is unusual. I just thought this is what every criminal kind of is going to be saying. And came back with antisocial personality disorder, and I just brushed it off, and I thought, oh, he's just thinking I'm mental because I've committed all these crimes, and he's a goody two shoes, and he just doesn't know that I'm just being a bit of a bad lad. I didn't realize there's anything wrong with me, quote unquote. And that was the start of the diagnosis. At the time, I didn't think the diagnosis was correct. When I was diagnosed with the antisocial personality disorder, I don't think that I shared it that much, to be honest. I remember with the second one, with the bipolar, because I'd purposely gone to get that evaluation. I shared it with, just one I can remember, I shared it with someone in the pub, and they just said, I can't remember the exact words now, but it was something along the lines of, I'm glad you figured out what it was, mate. like he knew. It wasn't this one moment where I'm like, I'm a psychopath. It was like, it's clues and signals and things throughout my entire life that, looking back on it, they kind of all fit in, and you go, oh yeah, actually. So it's a evolving process of coming to terms with any condition that you might have, right? Back then I had no need to mask, to display, to try and act, perform. If someone said, how did you attack that man? I would just tell you exactly how I attacked them, not realizing that maybe I should probably explain this in a different way and look a little bit different in how I share that information. And as I got into life coaching, and I was coaching people and I was helping people, I would hear their reactions. I was just thinking, surely not. Like, you cannot feel that way or think that way and act that way and feel. And then it was a pattern. They're all like it. They're all like this. They all care about these things. They all react about nothing. It's how, to me, it was frustrating because I just didn't understand it. Psychopaths, they still get frustrated, aggressive, angry, irritated. The worst feelings you can have, they still have. The most common myths about psychopathy is that they're bad people. They can do bad things, and it's much easier for them to do bad things. They can manipulate, they can lie, they can harm. But that is still a choice, and that's largely because they're uneducated and unaware of who they are, and they haven't learned to transmute those traits into positive attributes that can actually be advantageous. They're told their whole life they're bad and incurable, so I don't kind of blame them. I was almost going to go down that line myself. I was told, expelled from school, you're bad. Probation, pre-sentence report, you're bad. The lawyers, you're bad. The prison, you're bad. It's parents, you're bad. Everyone told me I was bad, and I thought I was bad. And bad people do bad things, because that's their identity. That's the person they think that they are. A lot of psychopaths have done bad things, and those are the ones you will hear of. And the thing is, though, not many people want to admit to psychopathy because of the stigma that it has associated to it. So there'll be great ones out there that just don't want to tell you because they don't want to say, oh, hey, I've been faking half this stuff, but I'm still a good person. But they do great things in the world. And if we could compare the good ones and the bad ones, then we'd probably have a better understanding of the sort of spectrum that it exists on. It is only portrayed online in the most drastic form. Like I said, it's on a spectrum. You've got psychopathy, which is on at one end of the spectrum, which is I don't care about anybody and I can kill them and get enjoyment out of it. And then the other end of the spectrum is someone that will cry when they hear a piece of music and they can't stop thinking about it for the next 3 days because it's still choking them up every time. So there's people that exist all the way on that spectrum, but we only, sensationalize the most interesting part of it. But actually, this is a neurodivergent mental health condition. I'm not a bad person. I care about people. I've got a condition. I live with it. I try my absolute best. But it absolutely shouldn't be demonized unless you do bad things with it. And that's only a very select few people that do. The population of psychopaths is 1% of the world. And then how many other people are sociopaths and narcissistics and have disorders? You'd be surprised. They don't even know it maybe, or they're hiding it or suppressing it. They're some of our most successful leaders that we don't even know about. It's out there. It's just misunderstood and portrayed in a very negative light. I got a bit of a thrill out of the violence when I was younger because it was power. I felt powerful. And I could see how that could have progressed potentially as I got older and maybe more aggressive and, edged it closer and closer, that maybe that could have, turned into some crazy violence. I don't know. But I never have any thoughts of harming people for the sake of harming people. It's just stigmatized because you hear of serial killers and you think of psychopaths. I'm a diagnosed psychopath. I do not get a thrill out of hurting or doing anything bad. I could do it, but I wouldn't want to. Like, it's stupid. It doesn't make sense why I'd want to do it. But that's because I've evolved myself to the point where I understand that. There is definitely an element of masking and putting on personas. I think we all do it. Like, you step into a meeting and you take the confident woman with you if that's who you need to be. You go on a date, you take the joyful, flirtatious person with you. You learn that behavior. That's a skill. And to say, oh no, I don't do it, everything I'm doing is completely genuine. No, sometimes I do put on a smile when there's no smile there. Sometimes I do create a connection when I first meet somebody because it makes them feel more comfortable, but I don't care to meet them more. Potentially I may be more skilled in certain areas at doing it, or it's more conscious than it is subconscious where people are doing it. But yeah, different scenarios, different circles, different people, different groups, different outcomes that I'm looking for. I will behave differently. I don't think I'm hiding this monster within. There's definitely times where I'm, putting on a bit of a front, or there is something, because in business, sometimes there is something you want from other people. Sometimes you are in a meeting and you couldn't care less about that person's holiday or, how nice their tie is. Not that I make comments on things like that, but the point I'm making is sometimes I couldn't care less and I don't like that person, but I might pretend that I do. But yeah, there's no monster waiting to pop out around the corner, and as soon as you close the door, there's this different version of me. There is a different version of me, but it's not a monster. It's a quieter, it's more introverted, it's a more dull, it's a more baseline version of me. I would not be the success I am without being a psychopath, because it's been my massive advantage. I have an ability to strategically think because I have to overcompensate for the lack of feeling. So I can create a plan and I can see every step that needs to take place. Sometimes people have like a goal and they can't visualize how to get there. And that's just some way some people are. I seem to be very methodical and strategic in my way of kind of taking very simple steps one after another with no emotional burden pulling me back. We created a business called the Coaching Masters. And the business grew exponentially. It was right before the pandemic. It was all online. We knew that it had to be online from the start. The main thing we do is we help people become life coaches. Those 15,000 students, they're people that have wanted to become a coach and they're now qualified as life coaches. That's the main part of our business now. you see a psychopath as manipulative, and I am very manipulative, but to help someone. I will persuade you to think better about yourself and live your life beyond your wildest dreams. It's just categorized as bad if you're manipulating somebody to do something that's harmful for them or beneficial for you. So manipulation can become persuasion. My impulsivity can be seen as being able to take risks. My lack of fear enables me to not be burdened by it. My emotional bluntness allows me to make logical decisions rather than being influenced by emotion and fear and ridicule and embarrassment or those things that might happen to people. It's like every single negative trait has a positive, and it's about trying to integrate them and allow them and see, rather than trying to dismiss it, because some people might think, oh, I'm quite manipulative sometimes, I'm going to bury that. But actually, why not try and accept that as part of something that you do, but just make sure that you're doing it constructively. So I'm able to integrate those negative aspects of myself, but use them for good.
How do you feel about people who might think, okay, this is not real then?
Loads of people do. I've been called a cult leader, and there's an element of truth behind it, right? Because when people say you're exploiting people for personal gain, I think, well, yeah, a business is for personal gain. Of course, like I'm not just doing this because I want to help everyone. I want to build a business. I want to make money. It's no different than any other leader of an organization. I'd be lying if I said I got everyone results, because it's impossible to give everyone results. They need to want it. I can coach, I can help, and I can make impact. But if you want a real transformation, it's self-led. So the ones that don't win, I couldn't care less. And I tell you why, not my fault. I will give you all the resources, all the skills, all the support, and I go over and beyond. Like, I will give you everything. But if you don't make it work, it's down to you. Do you think that universities are upset because they have a 3% success rate of people that actually get jobs in their field of their educators? They can provide the skills and resources, but it's down to the person. I know it works. It's helped thousands of people. If I was in a one-off scenario where it only works for me and everyone else it didn't work for because I'm teaching them how to be psychopaths, of course, that wouldn't be fair. But I'm not. I've educated myself. I know what it works, and I've proven it. It can multiple across thousands of people from different countries and different walks of life and different demographics. So I know it works. So if it doesn't work for you, that's down to you. And you'll probably find that the person that doesn't work for, probably nothing's working for them. A lot of people have overcomplicated the world. They worry about things that are never going to happen. And I just look at these people and I just think your life is just running out. Like your life is literally running out, and all you're doing is stretching yourself out and worrying and scared about things that don't exist. And I think, wow, that's not how I'm supposed to be. So there's obviously that part that I'm quite grateful that I don't have to be wrapped up in. There's a lot of ambitious people that want to achieve a lot with their life, and they know the things to do, but they don't do them because they're held back by that fear, the fear of their own insecurities and doubts and what might happen or won't happen. And actually, if you can look at it quite logically, a lot of people ask me how I'm successful, and I just say, well, I figure out what I want to do, and then I make like a plan of 1, 2, 3, and then I take steps 1, 2, and 3. I'm not some crazy genius with these mad plans. I just actually do all the things I want to do, because most people could do the exact same things, but they're just held back by those emotional constraints. There's a lot of successful people that will detach themselves from their emotions purposefully, because it's helpful in situations. Politicians, CEOs, surgeons, these people may actually be on this, psychopathy spectrum, but even if they weren't, they would have to make a conscious choice to distance themselves. Because if they were in the middle of surgery and they're like, oh my God, but what about if I clip that? Or what about what their parents or their family or their daughter I can't operate, I'm gonna have to let them just bleed out because, what about if something goes wrong? Dead. They're dead. Or what about if you go to war? It's like, can I kill 100,000 people with that decision, or 800,000 people with that decision? I can't kill those 100,000 people, so now they're all dead. You have to go 100,000 people just makes more sense. You know what I mean? So some people have the ability to either disconnect, or it's just disconnected anyway, but it of course can be helpful. From a corporate sort of point of view, I wouldn't say I'm the best leader in business. I definitely see it having flaws. I find it very difficult to communicate to people. I assume they think how I think a lot of the time. And I get very frustrated when they don't understand or don't do things the right way, because I don't know how they wouldn't be able to do it. Because to me, it feels very simple. And not in an arrogant way, but I see it clearly sometimes and they don't, and I find it frustrating to communicate that sometimes to staff. And I don't have much of a tolerance to support them emotionally from that real strong leadership perspective. I know that's the right thing to do. Nurture staff, employees, build them up. I really don't have the tolerance or the time or the patience in that. So I become more of a more of a dictatorship kind of leadership style. And it works to a certain extent, but I don't think it's the best way of doing it, to be honest. I think when you're changing things so fast and you're working so quickly and you just want to build something and you've got a vision for it, sometimes you don't have the space to nurture people and give them creative freedom to do their own thing, because I've got my vision and I don't know what I want to do. So I end up just barking orders and telling people what to do. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if we move fast enough, we still end up building quite well. I'm very happy that my life has made this massive change. Happy is an interesting one for me because I don't feel a strong happiness. I have a flatness, but I do have a sense of being content's also quite difficult, I would say. I'm on a climb. I know I'm on a climb. I have this illusion that the higher I climb, the more complete and fulfilled I'm going to feel. I know, because I'm educated enough to know that that's not going to happen, but I allow myself to carry that climb because it gives me the satisfaction of knowing that I'm working towards something. I know eventually I might hit a peak. Call me a psychopath, call me a manipulator, call me grandiose. I call that confidence. Call me, whatever you might, whatever trait you think, I'm okay with myself and who I am, and I'm okay with the impact I'm having, and I'm not making any negative impact on anybody else. The bizarre thing is, when I was told that you end up in prison, a part of me actually liked the idea of it, because I always knew that I was going to do something significant with my life. When I went to prison the first time as a young offender in the Young Offenders Institution, it was chaotic, but I kind of liked the excitement of it. It was fun in a way. It was like a different adventure because it's new, it's a different environment, meeting new people. It's just like being an action movie in a way. So it's part of it is fun. And everyone was asking me kind of what you in for? And I always had to respond with these very menial crimes at the time. And I remember thinking I wish that I could say something a bit more impressive. And that's how you rank. The more longer your crime and the more bad it is, the higher you rank, really. So I remember thinking I could actually do a better charge next time. So if anything, I was kind of waiting to go back. There was a big gap between the first and the second time I went to prison, 18 and 19. It wasn't until I was 24 in the end that I went back. I wasn't in the young offenders anymore. I was in the adult prison, and a bit more mature. It still had the same effect because I could still, what you in for still happened, and I was able to say grievous bodily harm. It's just enough to say, okay, it's just a standard offence, and also, he can fight. So I remember thinking, this is perfect. I didn't have any opportunity to connect with people in prison because it's just very transactional. People are coming from different wings, different prisons, in and out, getting released, coming in. So, you form people that you get acquainted with and you talk to, but it's just, so surface level, So I decided to do maths and English whilst I was in there. And the only reason I did that was because they pay you. You can only spend £15.50 a week maximum, even if you're a multi-millionaire, because everyone's got to be the same on your toiletries, your stamps, your food, your snacks, everything. But I didn't even have that. So I needed to get paid, and they pay you £10 to work, like cleaning the wing, or £11 for education. So an extra £1. So that's why I went to education, to be honest, for the extra £1 a week. I was 24 at this point, but I was acting like a child. I would screw the paper up, throw it around, I'm not doing this shit. The prison tutor, Susie, lovely lady, and she just came and sat down next to me, and she just said, "What's the matter?" And I actually don't think anyone had asked me that before. And I said, "I don't understand." And that was really confusing because I'd vocalizing these sort of subconscious thoughts that I'd never even really explored, just from simple questioning. And I thought, how do I not even know I understand? Because I've not even looked up at the board. I don't even know what you're teaching me. But how do I say I understand? And then, kind of for a few different thoughts and questions and chats, I realized it's kind of more of a not wanting my dad to be right, because he would call me a buffoon and stupid. So I thought I was. I was convinced I was stupid and incapable of learning, so I wouldn't even try. It was just this weird confusion thing that I wasn't even aware of. That's how crazy it is. It just happens. And for understanding it a little bit, I thought I can give it a try, and I started to learn maths and English and pick it up quickly. Of course, it was simple, and that was a big turning point where I was like, maybe I could. And I said to the prison tutor, Susie, I said, "Do you think I could go to university?" And I was almost like expecting her to go, "Don't be so stupid. Of course you can't," Because that's what I thought. I left school, well, I was expelled at 15, but we could leave at 16 back then. She just looked at me and she just said, of course you can. And I believed her, actually. I thought, actually, you actually believe I can. So that gave me a goal. I said, right, I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to go to rehab and I'm going to go to university.
Do you think that had she come 10 years earlier, it would have had the same impact on you?
I mean, I would have liked to have Susie in my life sooner. I think that would have been definitely advantageous, but who knows? You know, they say you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Maybe that was the perfect time in my life where she needed to intervene and give me that clarity. And maybe I would have, because to be honest, I was dismissive of help. Like, it would have probably been presented itself to me, because I remember, like, when I had this breakthrough moment inside prison, where I realized that I wanted to change and that I could change. Everything started becoming different. I see signs on the wall for therapy and AA meetings and stuff that I didn't see before. It's like my brain was actually, like in NLP, we talk about it, it's deleting, distorting, generalizing information through our filters. And it's a real thing. Like, it's not my perspective of the world. My world was physically different from changing changing myself, changing my thoughts. So the moment I decided I wanted to work on myself, I saw all these opportunities and all these people that wanted to help. And when they did approach me to help me, I would engage with it and I would realize that they were very helpful. But before, I just brushing it off, ignoring it. So, you know, who knows? Susie could have come into my life earlier and it could have helped, or maybe it wouldn't have been the right time. I did this rehabilitation of addicted prisoners trust program inside prison. And that was a game changer. It was so basic, but enough to give me a glimpse of what I could learn. When I was about to be released after 9 months, I applied for this 6 months fully intensive rehabilitation treatment centre in Portsmouth, right on the south coast, hours and hours away from where I'm from. And you can go to this full rehab and then you can like resettle there and get housing allowance and start a new life. I got released from prison, they picked me up, they escorted me right down to rehab. And that was worse than prison, because it was not the lovely retreat with yoga and mindfulness that I was sort of thinking in my head. It was, let's break you down, let's get all the trauma out, let's rebuild you, let's tell you how bad this is, let's get you out of denial, let's make this uncomfortable. All I wanted to focus on is my recovery, because I knew that was the first thing I needed to fix. If I can fix the drug and alcohol, that's going to let me think clearly and give me the space to do everything else. So that was my number one priority. I can't tell you exactly how that breakthrough moment happens. I think sometimes they happen out of nowhere. It's just like a moment that just clicks. It absolutely did break me down and built me back up. I've gone from a violent criminal drug addict to being a volunteer in Portsmouth, going to AA meetings on a Friday night and having a milkshake after for the enjoyment after the meeting. And I'm thinking, I can see the progress now. When I looked in the mirror and saw myself, it was just a truthful reflection. It was the version of me that's not blaming and not looking for a way out and not being in denial, and just an honest representation of, we are where we are, Lewis, and you are the problem. You have to accept that, but you have to also accept that once you realize you're the problem, you're also the solution. We can make changes. So my dad, in the end, he was an alcoholic, by the way, and he got pancreatic cancer from that. And I didn't know how to process that at the time, but he lost all of his weight and became very old very quickly, and he got a terminal diagnosis, and I just distanced myself from it because I didn't know how to deal with it. So he went to the hospital, and then the next day we went to visit him, and the nurse hadn't let me know that he had died. So I walked straight in through the room and I just saw him dead, and that was just a very, very shocking moment. But then I just suppressed everything, and I just went out and took drugs and took alcohol, and just life went on and suppressed all that. Because there was emotion from those things, for sure. Like, I didn't experience that one because I definitely blocked that out. But
did you go to the funeral?
Yeah.
How was the funeral?
It was a funeral. The worst, I know, that's too far. I was going to say, no, I'll be honest, the first thought that came to my mind was boring. But it's because they're all the same, aren't they? Because again, I don't really get the concept of things like that. My dad's my biggest trauma. I did say, like, the girlfriend hit me the hardest, but I think my dad's the biggest trauma. Like, I know that his words affected me the most, and there's definitely something unresolved there. I've done a lot of work on it. I think there's more to do. I wouldn't say it's chapter closed. I say it's put neatly, nicely in a box at the point where it's at a good position now. And it felt good to work on it, but I've got more to do. I've done all sorts of therapy, psychotherapy, the rehab, all sorts of things from a mindset perspective. And I became very strong in my mindset, I believe, but there was still a lot of healing and a lot of emotional work that I wanted to do. So I did try all sorts of different unconventional things, like plant medicines in Bali, like all sorts of different things like somatic work and energy healing. And the one that really worked was breath work. And over the last 5 years, I've been writing a book, and it's called Unlimited: How to Turn Adversity into an Asset. And that's the key message, is how to take anything that's ever happened to you, or any negative trait or flaw or thing you've done, and how to use that for positive, and how to use that as something that you can actually be grateful for. Not only to relieve that mental burden, but also to actually use the assets and the resources that are available to you, because you don't realize that they are in disguise some of your best traits. Like, I never would have thought that my psychopathic traits would help me become a millionaire. But they are there, and there are clues in success that aren't often shared because they're controversial. There are many successful people who have become success in a certain way, but then teach it in a different way because they can't really share what they've actually done. But I'm actually completely okay with saying this is how it is. I'm maturing, I'm learning new things. That's recalibrating the way and perspectives that I have, or I'm remembering other things, or I get interviewed and get asked different questions that trigger different things on my mind. For now, I'm content knowing that I'm developing, I'm being successful. I have the significance that I've been craving all my life in a positive way that is sustainable. Like, if anyone ever told me that I'd be on TV, doctorate, millionaire, all these crazy things, I would think you are crazy, because I would have been happy with a stable job and not taking drugs. So of course I'm happy about it. Does it give me that real deep internal content, fulfillment, happiness that, yeah, I've made it and I'm who I am? No. Can I get there? I hope so. Am I there yet? Not sure. But I'm on an ever-evolving quest. Like, I'm 10 years into this journey, but I'm 36 years old. I've got another, hopefully another 50, 60, 70, 100 years, who knows, to keep on evolving.
Hi, I'm a producer and Authorized account. If you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe and comment with more topics that you'd like us to cover in this series.